Hey, how you doing? Welcome to Webisode number 3 in my series on dyslexia and autism. Today we're going to discuss coping skills and development and things you can do to help out your dyslexic student or child or yourself. First, to isolate the issue that we're most commonly dealing with is that of written language, whether it's reading or writing. That tends to be the way that dyslexia manifests itself as far as the struggles of the regular academic school day. Although there are some dyslexics out there and dysgraphics out there who struggle with speaking and listening. I had a really hard time understanding and processing, decoding what people said to me as a kid. And as an adult, I've learned that ability of saying, "What did you say?" when I don't understand. But as a kid, that sort of is an acknowledgement that something's wrong, that you don't understand or don't process normally. So they'll tend to develop strategies like staring or smiling or laughing or developing phrases that can respond to anything like, "That's something to think about," or you know. So there's a degree of the 4 processes of language, and I don't want to get too terribly technical because not everybody here is listening on this webisode is a linguist. But essentially, all language is either writing, reading, listening, or speaking. And dyslexics can be strong or weak in these areas, not necessarily all of them. I'm a pretty good speaker and an okay listener these days. And writer and reader, but as a child, my weaknesses tend to lean away from speech and more towards the written language and processing, hearing, and I think that's fairly common amongst dyslexics because it is so easy to live inside our head. Even if we can't process what's coming in, eventually we can learn to express ourselves in some way. And but let's talk about some coping techniques. Let's talk about what you can do for your child, or what you can do, or what you can do for your student. One thing I would say is rephrasing is a key, because dyslexics tend to associate everything with all its possibilities. A lot of times we'll misunderstand a statement. Homophones are a nightmare. Phrasing things in a way that's unfamiliar is kind of a nightmare. So try rephrasing first. If you say, "What would you like to drink?" don't repeat, "What would you like to drink?" Say, "Do you want anything to drink?" And that subtle rephrasing difference may be the difference between them understanding and not. Rephrasing is a huge tool to use with people who have processing issues. One, encourage them to ask you to repeat things. If they give you that blank look, say, "Do you want me to repeat that?" And coach them into asking for repetition. As I got older, it became very common that the people I was closest to, I could always go, "What did you say now?" Or "Say that again." And it just became, it's a very common place. And even every average Joe does that. We just don't realize it. But for someone who's very uncomfortable in the fact that on a regular basis they don't understand what they just heard or saw, it's difficult to admit it and just come out and say, "I got 3 words of that. Can I get that again?" One thing I recommend as teachers: rephrasing, repeating, encouraging students or their children to ask you to repeat. I also, for those that really struggle with reading, and I'll get into this later in the series, but you need to look into the red filter theory that's just come out that's helping immensely with dyslexics and reading issues. Back in my day it was the mirror theory, where you read in a mirror and it was backwards and it slowed you down. They have this new filter theory where essentially reading through a red tint sort of focuses that part of your mind that gets confused by decoding all the symbols and letters, and sort of calms you down to just seeing that one linear plane of language, and just focuses the mind a little better. So Google that, red filter dyslexia, and you'll be able to read up on it. It's pretty cool. And in fact, we're moving towards having Kindle apps and tablet apps that apply that to all the Kindle books and the tablet ebooks to help you along with the reading process, just like that technology, those tablets and the Kindle can read a book to your child as well. So, other than people ask, well, other than rephrasing and other than waiting, giving them lengthy wait time, repeating, what can you do to help a dyslexic out in the struggles they have? I would say anticipating roadblocks. You've got to understand there's this mentality that you want to train a disability out of a child, that you want to give them a length of rope and pull them out of that pit. But that's kind of like trying to train someone who, has no legs to walk without a prosthesis. So it's just not going to happen. So what you really want to do is anticipate those roadblocks and give them the tools to get past them. If you know a child's going to have difficulty with a writing assignment, you need to make that anticipation and help them along with it. As a teacher myself, one thing I think is just under-taught and underutilized is speaking and listening. Of those four processes, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, school tends to be reading and writing. When the reality is, in life, it tends to be more speaking and listening, especially in the job force, and especially as we move forward with visual media and the direction technology goes. Speaking and listening are huge, valuable tools that are just underutilized. So I would encourage teachers to allow all students the availability of doing a project using speaking rather than writing, and at times, and to take in information via listening rather than reading at times. We tend to do a little bit of that early, and then somewhere along 5th or 6th grade, we suddenly start training people to be college professors, and we're no longer interested in speaking and listening. We're interested in, can they go through this regimented process of creating the correct math assignment and language arts assignment and science and so on down the hierarchy until we get them into college, and we have that same hierarchy, and our expectation is that they're doing mini thesis and moving along this progression that we've had for 130 years. So I would encourage teachers, create speaking assignments, create listening assignments, hand in hand with your writing and reading assignments, especially if you're in a content area that the regimented horrible standards don't force you down the path of reading and writing the way language arts standards do, and the way several other content areas direct you down that path. So again, roadblock. They're going to have problems with the writing. You make preparations for that. If you have no control over assignments or life or jobs in general, look towards technology. Buy a little electronic dictionary that has a spell checker on it. That tool in a middle school setting or 5th or 6th grade setting or high school setting or college setting would be invaluable to a dyslexic. Laptops, huge advantage. Tablets, huge advantage. A simple note to a teacher from you or from a parent that says, do you care if I use this electronic dictionary? Is it okay if I do all my assignments, on this laptop in class, or, is there an alternative setting where I can spell check this before it's turned in? Make them aware. Awareness is a huge key, and in general, we're in this huge diagnosis world where students have an IEP or they have some sort of diagnosed disability. But always remember, we're also in helpful land, where the vast majority of teachers, if asked, if they will make an accommodation where you're doing the majority of the work, where you're doing the checking, you're doing the extra work as a parent, you're giving them this electronic device, you're taking the time to come into the class and spell check their test before it's graded and things like that. if you're making the effort, almost every teacher I've ever met in my entire life, good, bad, and ugly, is going to say, yeah, sure, if you take the time to do this, I'm more than willing to help out. Because we are getting to an age where there's just, it's difficult for some people to get a diagnosis, especially the later you wait, especially with dyslexia. By the time I was in 7th and 8th grade, between shame of not wanting to admit it and me adapting into this extremely vocal person who just pretended to be a slacker at school, I could pass as brilliant. And I don't want to say I wasn't. It's our exceptional children really are exceptional, but at the same time, what I was presenting was not someone who would be diagnosed, and that is kind of the path that a lot of our LD and dyslexic kids tend to go down, and probably why ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, is so easy to diagnose is because it's that social side of things that they have a hard time disguising. Academically, they do just fine in many cases. But again, I don't want to get into anything too more technical or ramble on and on. And I hope I've told you a few things that are helpful. Rephrasing, work on that. Always word things differently the second time around. It seems silly, but when you say a certain word like to, they might be thinking the other kind of to, and it confuses things. I always tell this story to try to explain dyslexia and sort of where we get our creativity. For the average person, they don't experience this, but I can look across the room and see this giant rat that has a strange-looking tail. And in my brain, I'm aware that there's no way there's a rat that's the size of, a TV. But that's what my brain is telling me is in the room, but something's off about it. And slowly I sort of process and I come up with these hypotheses as to what it could be. Because I know it's not a rat, so I know it can't be alive. And my brain just goes in all these directions, and then finally I kind of see that the tail doesn't look like a real tail. So I come up with, in my mind, all the possibilities of what this could be, until I figure out that it's really just a pile of clothes. But my brain's processing plays tricks on me. Now the wonderful thing is, it's in those moments of confusion that we come up with possibilities that aren't necessarily real and aren't the correct thing, but once we revisit them, they're amazing. That's how so many dyslexics, like Einstein and Da Vinci, went in these weird directions that no one really expected, and why we can think outside the box. It's because in those moments of confusion comes true creativity. But in the end, we're also silly because we couldn't figure out that that was a pile of laundry and not a giant rat. And the same thing holds true in sentence structure. When someone words, would you like to have a bowl of ice cream today? You might get caught up on bowl of ice cream, and you just ate one, and you're not sure what the verb and the noun was in that sentence, and then suddenly you're going back to the last time somebody said bowl of ice cream, and they told you to clean up a bowl of ice cream, and you're looking around for a bowl of ice cream to clean up, and you've completely missed the point. So a lot of times that rephrasing will change that. Would you like some ice cream? And because that bowl isn't in that sentence, it clicks, and you suddenly go, oh, yeah, sure, I'd like that. It's simple things. Rephrasing is a huge thing. Be sure and do that. The second is watch your roadblocks. Use your technology. Talk to teachers. Let them know what's going on up front, whether it's you or whether it's your kid, whether you have a diagnosis or you don't have a diagnosis. Let them know you're willing to do your end of the bargain if they are willing to do theirs. And the truth is, you will have to stay on it. That is your job as a parent, and your job as a mentor, and your job as a student is to hold up your end of the bargain. And then I'd say the other thing is encourage kids and dyslexics. Ask people what they said. If you don't understand, just ask. Don't get that blank look or that goofy laugh or that that's something to think about. Just spread your comfort zone of being able to say, what was that? Or if it's your child, encourage them. Say, when you're confused, ask what I just said, and make them do it with you first, and that will eventually spread. Because there's nothing more liberating than being able to be close enough to someone that when they say something to you and you ask them to repeat it, they just do so without a lot of protest or going, "Why weren't you listening to me?" Those are horrible words you can say to a dyslexic or an LD or an autistic kid. Is why aren't they listening to you? It's not that they weren't listening. It's that they didn't process it, and they didn't hear you. They're certainly not ignoring you. And that all comes back to patience. Be patient with your children, exceptional ed or otherwise. Remember, the brain develops at a very slow rate, and a lot of the times we wonder, why did they not get that? Why did he not hear that? Why did they not remember that? How can you not keep track of that? All those things come in time. Be patient with your children. Okay? Be patient with yourself. Anyways, I hope something was informative. Thank you again for watching the third webisode here. And look, next weekend we'll have a fourth webisode. And that's it. Thanks.